Welcome to episode 217 of Wealth Talk. My name is Christian Rodwell, the Membership Director for Wealth Builders, joined today by our founder, Mr. Kevin Whelan. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Chris. Good to be with you again.
And what a wonderful guest we have with us today, Dr. Shelley James. And we are focusing on the IP pillar today. So for anyone tuning in new, we have 7 pillars of wealth, 7 different ways that you can generate recurring income to help you move from a place of financial insecurity to financial independence. And pillar 6 is intellectual property, Kevin. So before we get stuck into today's conversation with Shelley, perhaps you can just give an overview of, where IP fits amongst those 7 pillars.
Well, it's a great one because everybody's got it, and everybody sells it, but they usually, like most of the pillars, undervalue, underutilize and underperform. So in simple terms, we've all got a brain. We create value in the world. Therefore, we're giving our IP, our intellectual property, we're normally giving it away. So the easiest way to value your IP is to say, if I turn up, give my brain plus the rest of body for a service to an employer, let's say, or a customer, if you're in business, then you can almost work out the hourly rate for your IP. Now, simplified calculation. No, it's not technically accurate, but let's, for the purpose of illustration, if you've got a job and you earn 50,000 a year, you're selling your IP for £25 an hour. You basically halve it. If you've got a job for 100,000, your IP is just IP, but it's worth 50 quid an hour. It's no more valuable in the sense that it isn't recurring. It's not creating an ongoing royalty value. It's not creating an alternative income stream for you. It's simply a linear transaction of exchange between the deliverer of the IP, you, and the receiver of the IP, a customer or an employer.
Yeah, and just pick up on that for anyone who's trying to figure out why you halve it. That's based on approximately 2,000 hours.
2,000 hours, yeah.
That someone would work each year.
40 hours a week for 50 weeks a year, in approximately. So that's the reason for it. And it shocks people when I say, well, I can value your IP, and then tell them the number, and they sort of, okay, yeah, fair enough. But the real skill, and Shelley's on the journey, Dr. Shelley James, she's on the journey. She's not there yet, which is great. I love that because actually we had, was it Rachel Bunny recently?
Yeah, episode 201.
Episode 201, who was literally crafting that transition. And I love this because when you realize your IP has the potential for significantly more value than you're delivering it for, then you're marking a transition. And that transition will always have a number of steps to it. And you touch on that in your interview with Shelley. So maybe we'll let the interview flow and then come back to what those steps are. Because if you can, like a GPS system, Chris, if you can know what the steps are, then you can actually formulate a plan to leverage, get more value from your IP than the static nature of how most people create income. And of course, when you stop delivering IP, you stop getting paid for the most part. So in a job, if you stop turning up and delivering your service, you're not going to get paid. Now, you might get sick pay and things like that, but in the end, you don't get paid. So you can't pass on a job. And if you've got a business that demands you being there, you're a coach, you're a tutor, you're using your hands, you're a craftsman or whatever, an artisan, usually you're putting your time and energy in and getting the value in exchange. For that, in some way, even if it's a piece of work, you've still measured the time in order to get that, to discover what price point you want to charge for whatever you do. And that's the other thing that becomes relevant here, Chris, and Shelley touches on it. The price point is often underpriced for you because you haven't yet distilled your IP into a point of uniqueness. So if you don't have uniqueness, or you're what I call being outstanding in a niche, It doesn't have to be absolutely unique, but it can be, you're just brilliant at that, and there aren't too many people doing it. And that means, or you're doing it in a certain way that's different, and you can differentiate it. And that differentiation can make a big, an incredible difference in the value of one person's IP compared to another person's IP. Yeah. And so all of those things will come out, and there'll be useful lessons for people listening who would like to capitalize on that, but also for Shelley, of course, who's on the journey herself and quite humble in her approach to sharing. You know, she's doing things, but not always getting it 100% right, and is genuinely at the beginning of that transitional stage to leverage her IP. So a really good spot, I think, from you to bring Shelley in and talk about that. But she's done a great job of that preparation, hasn't she?
Yeah, indeed. And we know a lot of our members really like the idea of creating IP, but the reality is often a little bit more complicated. And we hold marketing clinics, which I run for our members every month, and answer some of these questions about how do you validate your product? How do you put this into practice? And we're actually offering a download for anyone listening, Kevin. I did a 4-week course for our members probably a few months back, and it's available, and I'd love to share that with anyone listening who's at that early stage who wants to take their idea and see if they can actually turn that into profit.
Nice.
Yeah. So if you'd like to get access to that, it's a 4-part video series, absolutely for free. Head to wealthbuilders.co.uk/IP videos, all one word, IP videos, and you can download that. Yeah.
Nice. And I think that reinforces our point, which is, you know, we love to share value and content, you know, free of charge sometimes a low cost, sometimes a higher cost, but always accessible. So yeah, we love to share some things that will be useful for you to start thinking about the thinking, which is really what IP is. Think about the thinking, and then you can turn that into much more value. And so, you know, good introduction to the subject. Why don't we jump on and hear what Shelley has to say?
Well, let's do that. And just before we do that, I'll mention our next event that's coming up. Last month, we were in Manchester, Kevin, and the wheels are well and truly back on the bus because we're on the road to Birmingham now. And the next live networking Wealth Builders meetup will be taking place on the 29th of November. That's a Wednesday night, starting at 6 p.m, really central location in Birmingham. And you can find out all of the event details by heading to wealthbuilders.co.uk/events. And yeah, we'd love to meet more members and non-members. So open to everybody.
Jumped the gun a bit there, didn't I, Chris? Sorry about that. That's what happens when you put an amateur in the role of the host.
So much to share today. Anyway, you're right. Let's move on to our conversation today with Dr. Shelley James. Dr. Shelley James, welcome back to Wealth Talk today. How are you?
I'm really well. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, it was back in episode 159, Shelley, when we last invited you to come and share with our listeners all about the topic of looking at your business in a new light, because you are known as the Light Lady. And I would say globally, you're traveling, you're touring, you're speaking on stages. The word is really getting out there now, isn't it?
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
It's good. And, you know, you've got some products, and we're going to be talking about that today, actually, Shelley, because today's conversation is around about turning your knowledge into something of value. And this is something that you're in the process of doing. In fact, you've been doing for a long time, but we're going to look at how you're now turning your knowledge and experience that you've been sharing with thousands of people over the last few years now into products, courses, which is really looking at the intellectual property pillar. And how can you start to generate additional income streams? And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing all about this, Shelley. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of what you've been doing there to turn that IP into income, tell us a little bit about the background. Where did all of this begin, Shelley? And tell us what your core message is.
So where it began is probably through a head injury, actually. I mean, I spent my first career was in branding. I was trained textile designer, and then I am working in branding, so working on organizations, big organizations, their logos and how they express themselves. And I banged my head really badly all the wires got scrambled, had to start again, and essentially had to start again with my life. So I had to kind of start again from scratch, and was fascinated by light, having spent many years indoors retraining that system. Through lockdown, realized that nobody understood what a difference very small changes in their lives could make to their ability to sleep, to concentrate, to smile, and actually how much more energy efficient that could be too. So I set up a campaign through lockdown, thanks to my amazing brother Jim, who's a member of this amazing community, and that just went beyond my wildest dreams. And so for teens, and that led to a TEDx talk, which again went amazingly well, and realizing that I'd touched a nerve, that there are people who, I mean, where you're sitting right now, you probably see, I can see 10 light bulbs right now, and that includes, your screen and all the lights coming at you from everywhere, and hopefully there's a window there too. But how we kind of get quite used now to thinking about how we organize our diets, maybe we join a gym, but light is as important, and yet we have no idea. We have no idea what we need. We have no idea what to buy. So I work with global organizations and with individuals to help them to kind of make healthier choices, very often free or at very low cost, that can really make a big difference to their well-being and also their environmental impact. So that's my core message, is that it's not rocket science. In fact, they've been doing it on the space station, because they don't get out, they get out even less than we do. But essentially that's the core message, is that it doesn't have to be hard, and it can actually be joyful. So that's what I do.
Yeah, and we obviously went into a lot more detail in the previous episode, so I'll link to that in today's show notes for anyone who wants to go back and hear a bit more. But today, obviously, you've built a brand, you've built a business now, Shelley, which you're continuing to build, and I know you're speaking in some amazing places to some amazing organizations, and as you said, helping them as well. And because you've got that experience now, and you've got that confidence to go out and speak, and it seems like a natural path to now think, okay, well, what's next? So tell us about why you decided to start turning some of this knowledge that was in your head, and you were, I presume, being paid to go and speak at some of these events, and you thought, well, how could I leverage that? Because obviously key part of building wealth is leverage, and we talk about different types of leverage. It could be financial, could be intellectual leverage, it could be relationships, but the intellectual piece is what really where I want to focus, Shelley. So tell us about the process of thinking, okay, well, I could do this, and now what do I actually need to do to take that first step?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One of them is that, through Wealth Builders, I've become very aware of the need to look beyond, kind of income from running around doing stuff. And I've recently hurt my back, so it's like, okay, I need to know that there is money coming in from other stuff, where I don't have to be on a plane or on the stage. And so that was one part of it, going, I need to be thinking strategically here. And the other was realizing that people have been asking me to kind of help them to write material for their audiences, and going, well, the problem is that they very often kind of add their own spin to it, and it doesn't come out quite right. So how can I make sure that the message is coherent and accurate, and reaches more people? So there was a kind of a joint thing there. And part of that is that I'm on a big international building standards advisory committee and on their faculty, and realizing that when I trained to learn how to do this stuff, there was nothing useful out there. So, and I know that people are prepared to pay for that information, because it helps them to support, grow in their own businesses and professional practices. So what I decided to do was to leverage my network, and I suppose the work I've been doing so far, to focus very closely on continuing professional development. So many of my clients who are, or people that I speak to, they are building surveyors or engineers or electricians, and they all have to, in order to maintain their professional certification, they have to show that they continue to learn. And I'm sure that's the same. I think it's the same in the financial sector. And they can choose pretty much how they do that learning. But I decided that I could offer information that I know already and that I'm passionate about, and share that accurately and in a way that's accessible, by registering to have these modules certified as being of a standard where somebody who could pay to go on that module would then receive points for their professional development. So there are lots and lots of courses, lots of free stuff actually online. You can be on a webinar every single day of the week. But what I wanted to do was to make sure that I was in the space where people can see the value and they're used to paying for that, because the price point for professional stuff in every sector is very different to the price point for kind of discretionary or domestic stuff. So that was my route, was I can't keep on running around forever. I've got information to share, and it needs to be in a space where people are used to paying proper money to get that information.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned there who your target market is: property developers, building professionals, and you identified a gap. So that's always the first step, right? There's a problem which generally you realize yourself. It's like, well, hold on, I'm struggling to get the information, or I'm struggling to learn how to do this. And you look around and you think, well, nobody else is doing it. What about me? So I think that's fantastic that you identified that gap. And then, CPD certification there is something, of course, that's very valuable to other people, and they have to do it, right? So there's a need. So again, ticking that box. So how did you then go about actually creating the content?
The first thing to do was to make sure that the material that I created would be valid. So somebody paid for it would get something of value to their professional development points. So I looked around, and there are different organizations who certify or regulate this stuff, and the industry bodies, they're quite expensive. You have access to their audiences, but it's expensive, it's time consuming, it's quite, they make it not terribly easy. But there are a couple of others who are much more agile, much more customer focused, and much cheaper. And I thought, well, I need to just sort of try this out first. So what I did was to take a talk that I'm giving in Germany in a couple of weeks' time, and go, so I need to rethink that as a webinar that somebody could buy in 3 little modules, 3 20-minute modules that would be an hour and a half plus evaluation. And I went for a very agile, very affordable platform, absolutely kind of rock solid, very thorough, very, but the big industry bodies were more like fortress. So I thought, well, I'm going to start small and do that. So I did my first one, and I beta tested that with so I basically took something I knew very well already. I knew how to do it standing on my head. The next thing was to work out how to deliver that in a form with learning outcomes and quizzes and all the things that they need in order to learn how that particular system worked, and create a workflow. So I used some online tools, and I basically reformatted that, and I beta tested that, and I kind of got my first client through Eventbrite, through my little network, to say, would you come? And they paid, and what a great feeling that was. So that was the way that I approached that, was to say, what's my minimum viable product here? It's an in-person webinar or Zoom meeting with somebody I probably already know, using a certification system which only takes 2 weeks and is much more sort of accessible and transparent than the big industry bodies.
Yeah, so that's great. And I think again, so many lessons there, which is don't get perfect, just get something out there and test it. As you said, that minimum viable product. So you want to keep your costs low, you want to keep your time, energy low, get it out there, get someone to go through it, even if at first they go through it for free, right? Just to give you feedback.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you mentioned some of the tools you used. Specifically, because I know this is where a lot of people get caught up, Shelley, is there's so many tools out there, there's so many platforms, where do you begin? So were there a couple that you liked or that you didn't like? How did you approach that?
So there are a couple of things to think about. One of them is the learning, depending on, let's just think about content generation first. So the way that I've got a bunch of sort of PowerPoint slides, essentially. And what I did was to take those into Canva initially, and now I'm using Descript, which is better. So perhaps we'll just look at Descript, because that's actually much better. Okay, so what I've done then is...
How's that one spelled, Descript?
Descript.
Okay.
So your goal really is to have a series of visual aids, essentially, and a talk, kind of you talking them through, and a workbook or some kind of resources that people can access and download with the references and further material and stuff. And then you have quizzes, but that's a separate, we'll talk about quizzes separately. So what I did initially was to PowerPoint into another program online, record over the top, download it all. It was just get into PDF, and then it was just actually not that great. So now what I've done is to take my, I've got a keynote or PowerPoint slides, and I'm recording myself speaking to those on Descript. Now what that does is I've got a video, I can record my screen so I can see there's a little sort of window of me, and I can record myself talking to the slides, and I can stop, I can start again, and I can also share screen. So one of the things that I'm working on now is accessing a particular platform and how you do that as a lighting designer. So I can cut and paste all of that, and this Descript thing not only gives me a video, and it allows me, if I fluff up or something, I can cut that bit out. And it not only cuts out the text, it cuts out the video as well. So I end up with a properly edited, pretty high quality video. But I also end up with the word transcript. So I end up with an AI generated, you can edit it, but I end up with my script as well. And I can take that in as a Word document into another program, which is really exciting, really great, which is called Designer. And that then allows me to take my script and run that into a workbook format. And then I can add my slides in as images. And suddenly I've got a really beautifully produced, and then I can publish that as an ebook or as a flip book, or so I've got a bunch of different ways of outputting that material that somebody can then, so it makes a really lovely professional package. So, and then if you want to create a quiz, I've just come across another software, and I can't remember the name of it because I haven't yet used it. I think it's called Quizzical AI, which essentially if you take your script and give that to Quizzical and tell it how many questions you want, it will generate your quiz for you. So those are just tools. And then, so now you've got your material, and then the next thing is to find the learning platform that you want to deliver that onto. But you don't actually need a learning platform. If you're beginning with your minimum viable product, which is basically a webinar, what you need to do is to share the material with the certification service, and they have a look and see whether it's accurate, all of those things. And what you've done is to give them a really clear view of what your audience or your learner is going to get.
Yeah. No, that's great. And as you say, you don't need to spend a lot of money on those tools. Some versions might even be free.
Oh, they are. They are.
Yeah. And most people have got PowerPoint or Keynote on their Mac, and you can upload to a Google Drive, or the storage tools are free to be able to then share it with your audience. So again, very, very valuable lessons, and not to get too caught up in which tools to use. Just pick some, and I think the ones you've recommended there are obviously working well for you, and I'll link those in the show notes for anyone that wants to go and check those out as well, Shelley. So once your material is created, then in your case needs to then be certified, which it was. How was that process of getting the CPD accreditation?
So I had registered with the CPD certification service. They're the oldest ones actually, and they've got a very responsive, very thoughtful team. So you actually have somebody at the front end who kind of has a look at your material first and says, oh, we're missing that, or would you consider adding that? So very, very supportive, an excellent way to start. And so I bought a bundle which was 3 courses, which they certified for 2 years. So I've done my first one. I'm just getting ready to submit. Actually, I've submitted my second one. And they've got a couple of forms that you need to fill in. One of them includes the learning outcomes and a kind of a short blurb that they will put on their website. And then you also need so you need a learning outcomes form, basically and you need to be quite clear about what somebody's going to learn, historical context, whatever it is. And that's a great discipline actually as a teacher, is to say, why am I telling somebody this? How does that fit into the story? So there's a great discipline in filling out that form. And then the next piece is a lesson plan. So how long is each bit going to take? And again, it's great practice. It's like, I'm not going to get those 15 slides in 5 minutes, so I'm going to need to choose here. Or actually, I've only got 3 slides on that topic. I better balance that one out. So you submit your form and your stuff, and I put it all onto a Google Drive that they can access and download, and they will let me know if there's something missing. I wrote one for a client, a big lighting manufacturer, and they got a request back from the certification service, actually REBA, saying, could you please add kind of the academic reference for that piece of information you shared, and we like to include a piece about environmental impact, so could you include a couple of points about that? So I was able to kind of, so that there's no shame in them coming back with information. Usually it makes it better. Yeah. And so the team I've chosen is 10 to 14 days turnaround. The big RIBA, SIPC, those big ones, it's 6 weeks or so, and it's just like, yeah. So choose one that's agile and responsive, and I found these guys were really great.
And there's another benefit, I believe, to being registered there, which is another leverage point, and that's relationships and community and network. Because one of the stumbling blocks that I find many people hit when they're creators, they come up with all of the ideas, they come up with the course, but then the marketing piece is where it really lets them down. Because if nobody is aware of your course, if nobody knows how to find it, then you're not going to sell anything. So being on the accredited site there opens up a whole directory of people for you, doesn't it, Shelley?
Yeah, so that's there are two ways it does that. One of them is that depending on the platform that you choose, the CPD certification service that I chose as a provider, as somebody who's sort of paid to be on there, you know, in the little system, you are a CPD provider. And so somebody who's looking for a course about health and well-being, they might be in human resources. I might actually access people that I hadn't even thought of before, because I'm on, you know, they serve the NHS, they serve the police, they serve the government. So all kinds of people are trawling their website to find relevant material that they can score, you know, get CPD points for. So that will give me access to another network. The other thing is that I've done is to be sort of make friends with them, really kind of give them lots of information and ask them about them, and just sort of be as personal as, well, not personal in a negative way, but, you know, just kind of be as constructive as I can, generous as I can. And they have organizations who are organizing big conferences, who very often have a CPD program as a way to attract visitors. So if you go to a big lighting conference, there'll be a CPD program, and you can get points for just showing up and sitting down there. So they now know about me and what I do. And when somebody who is organizing a conference about well-being for the NHS or for a big human resources conference is going, oh, how about something a little bit left of, they email CPD certification saying, got anything interesting? And they might say, they haven't yet, but they might say, oh, this is a bit left of field, but you might enjoy that. This is interesting. So that gives me, again, access to a network of people who are used to paying for training that I hadn't even thought of before.
Yeah, that's a great benefit. And what other methods will you be able to expose the course through speaking? I imagine now it's an opportunity to let people know, if you want to learn more, go to my website or wherever you choose to point them to. What other areas might you be able to promote the course through, Shelley?
So yeah, I mean, there's the personal network. I've got a small but very engaged email newsletter thingy. Obviously I've got my website. It's not somewhere people are going to go to. It's not, you know, people don't trip over it. So there'll be that. But also I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So I will post I might do a live one and sort of share a link, and people can get a discount for that. So those sort of social media networks. And the great thing about doing this through Descript is that I can share a snippet. I can share a couple of, you know, kind of some teasers and tasters, so that people go, oh, that looks interesting. I can see why I would pay for that. So using your existing social media networks is one. And then the platform itself. So for the next ones, I'm plucking up courage to submit it to SIPC, and I've got a bit more time now, so and a bit more confidence. So there I will access that huge network, and again, in the process, I've made friends with their learning provider team. So there's that, and then I guess there's actually sort of cold calling, because the thing that I'm doing is with Well, for example, is that it's a big organization, and there's a European network. There's lots of other stuff. There's big directories about people who are involved with this stuff. So I'm looking at their directory going, I'm going to scoop off some of the names of people who are in organizations who could afford to pay for a block booking of 50, for example, of this thing, and give them a discount. And but I'm going for the low hanging fruits, because I'm not sure the great thing about this system is that you can get it certified, and then up to 10% of the material, if you need to update it or fine tune it, you can without needing to go through it again. So I'm starting, just as you guys say, and it's always an inspiration, just turn the handle. It's tempting to go, no, next. And, but actually I'm just going to see how I'm going to have a core network, core offer 3 courses or 3 modules, and just get really well known for doing those really, really well, and then branch out from there.
Yeah. And in terms of price point as well, Shelley, so, we say at the beginning, just do something, get some feedback, give it for free, tinker, make it better, and then get your first paying customer. You mentioned already you've started to get people paying for the courses, but how are you deciding on the right price point at the beginning?
So I don't do things, I'm not offering it for free, just because people don't show up when it's free. And it doesn't value their effort, and it doesn't validate if they're getting CPD points for it. Manufacturers who do CPD, they don't expect people to pay, but this is a funnel into a relationship with me, and potentially having me do this, work with them personally. So I don't want to set the precedent of being free. What I will do is a massive discount. So I put the course on Eventbrite for 50 quid with the discount for people who just sent me a message that they'd said would like to come on it, so it went down to 25 quid, 50% discount. And actually for most people that's fine. And in fact, everybody showed, well, this one person was, it's like, okay, it's 25 quid, I'm going to show up. So I think showing that there's value there, I think is really important. You can have a beta testing group, but it doesn't attract a CPD point. The goal is to say, if you're going to get value for your business from this, you need to pay at least a nominal amount to respect the transaction. So I started off at 50 quid, but I know that the average course in this field is between 75 and 150. So that's where I'm heading, and to get as many people paying full price as I can. My goal is to sell 10 at full price by the end of the year, just to kind of have something to aim for.
Absolutely. So an extra £1,000 or thereabouts income stream for something you've created once that sells itself over and over again. So that is true leverage, and the beauty of the intellectual property pillar. And everyone has got IP, haven't they, Shelley? And this is something that is so easy to overlook. Like literally everybody knows how to do something, has a passion about something, but we just think, well, doesn't everybody know how to do that? But we've all got that genius, haven't we?
We absolutely have. And anybody you speak to, a busy mum, and my mates who kind of get 3 kids off to school and come down swimming and have a social life and and work, that sort of concept, that ability to organize and focus and connect is something that we most people don't think, oh, that's normal. You go, well, really? That is normal. There are people for whom that is really valuable. And I think there are 2 ways of thinking about what one of them is depending. For me, what I wanted to do is to have something where the IP was helping somebody professionally to move into, to kind of score the points, but also potentially to a relationship with me. So if you want to create a course which is about, kind of juggling a busy life, you'd be amazed at what and that you take for granted. But if it's something that is a funnel into working with you as, offering a service, then it's really is a win-win-win. So yeah, you might know how to make the most amazing coffee, or who knows what it is that but you'd be amazed at whether it be recovering from an illness or managing back pain or dealing with the kid who can't eat wheat, you will have a zone of expertise that is unexpected and that actually adds value to somebody else.
And you've built your brand, Shelley, known as the Light Lady, as I mentioned at the beginning, TEDx speaker, thousands and thousands, probably nearly at the 100,000 mark now on that video.
200, yeah.
Yeah, incredible. And author as well, which is another funnel, another income stream. So there's a new book on its way. Shelley, tell us about that one, and holding it up for those that are watching the video.
Well, I wrote two really. One of them is this one, which is a parent's guide for health and happiness. Basically, it's all ways that as a parent you can help your kids to sleep, to learn better at school, to manage their mood through the winter. So that was targeted at parents, and so yeah, that one's out. I mean, it was my minimum viable product. I KDP'd it, I did it on pages on my computer here, early in the mornings and late nights. I didn't know how to do footnotes properly. I had a friend do the illustrations, and I learned so much with that. And I got my first royalty check of 25 quid a couple of weeks last week. It's like, my goodness, this works. So now I've uploaded it to Fiverr to have somebody kind of get all the links to work correctly. I put QR codes in there so that people can access information. I put a shopping guide in, and the great thing about, again, online publishing is that I haven't got boxes of these things in my garage. I can update the manuscript without, and I've got some nice reviews, so I can update manuscript without jeopardizing that. What I've also done, and this is the next one, is for grown-ups, which is much more focused on how you set up your home office, as an older person, how that stuff works. So, and again, a more extensive shopping guide, because people kept on saying, so what shall I buy? So setting up a shopping guide on Amazon.
What's the title of that second one, Shelley, for anyone that...
Like your essential survival guide.
Yeah, so that looks absolutely fantastic. So if you're just listening, then you can check out the recording. Shelley and I speaking right now. You can see the books if you head to the Wealth Builders socials and the Wealth Builders website. And Shelley, you'll be coming and speaking to our members, our family members, hopefully, as a Meet the Author session, and talking about your book there aimed at parents and understanding what some of those tools are that you've included in that.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. And I mean, just another to mention is that now, because people are starting to buy stuff that I've seen and recommended, Amazon have now made me an affiliate, so I will get money from people buying stuff that I recommend. So it's another way that your IP, if you're generous with it and kind of give it out, it's funny old ways of it coming back to you. And I'm very much looking forward to speaking to parents, because parents spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds on piano lessons and sports lessons and stuff, and overlook some of the things that could be just so close to home and so cheap and make such a difference. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. Yeah,
that's great. And you've really demonstrated, Shelley, I think, for our listeners today, how you can become a multiple income individual, and how you can take something that you really enjoy talking about, that you have some knowledge about, and that can provide massive value for other people. And that value obviously can turn into an income stream and help you create a business and a lifestyle that you wake up every day really looking forward to. And I'm sure that's the case for you.
It certainly is. Yeah. Thank you.
Shelley,
it's actually, Wealth Builders has been a big part of that journey. When I started with Wealth Builders, I was a long way away from this. So it's really thanks to some of the lessons that you guys shared too.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you, Shelley. And for those listening now who would love to go and watch your TED Talk or find out a bit more about your books, where's the best place for them to go?
If you look for Dr. Shelley James, you'll find me. I'll pop up on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the place where I spend most time. There's a website called Age of Light Innovations. If you go on Amazon, and now on Waterstones, the parents guide will pop up. So but just reach out. I'm as you can see, I'm passionate about this, and I spend lots and lots of time speaking to people who have questions, and it's always a privilege to share. So yeah, get in touch.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for sharing with us today, Shelley.
Thank you.
Thank you to Shelley there for sharing her journey on the IP pillar. And congratulations to Shelley for generating some income. And we can see that growing really quickly over the coming months now. And she's leveraging her network and some great lessons, which I'm looking forward to diving into with you in a second, Kevin. Before that, let's read out a review from Trustpilot. And thanks to Sam this week. who said, "Financial freedom, here we come. For those that wish to gain insight on how to escape the rat race by playing Cashflow 101, it's an absolute must to attend the Wealth Builders event. And you always learn something new each time you play. And it's also a great opportunity to meet like-minded people. Chris ensures that he is always at hand to give advice and answer any questions. An awesome evening, well spent. See you at the next one."
Did you say the word meek then? Is that a meek?
It must be the mouse and the rat race creeping
I don't
in.
know. Well, according to some teachings, the meek shall inherit the earth. So, you don't need to worry about it if you're meek.
Well, I mentioned our Birmingham event just before our interview there, but we've also got another event in November, and that's taking place on the 14th in central London. It's at the All Bar One, just a minute's walk from Tottenham Court Road Station. And it's going to be a combo. So for anyone who wants to come and play Cashflow 101, then we're going to have some boards set up, and I'll be there to guide you. And it's really fun, learn the lessons of money. But also, if you just want to come and network, rub shoulders and have a drink, then you're more than welcome to do that as well. So again, we'll be kicking off at 6 p.m. and I believe you'll be joining us, Kevin.
I will. I'm looking forward to that. So I'll leave you to run the games and help people with that, and I'll be there, kind of in a networking capacity, and see what I can do to help anyone who's got some questions, or even connect them with somebody else in the community if they're looking for something for someone who's got the IP that I don't, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, really useful to do that one. By the way, it's really next to the Elizabeth line, which goes all the way out to Reading. So, it's if you're in Berkshire, just jump on the Elizabeth line and you're next to Tottenham Court Road Station. It's really that close. But other parts of the country, we're well on the way. So you've got Birmingham, Northeast is coming, Scotland is coming, Wales is coming. We just need to, we're going to get all of that laid out, ready in the early part of 2024, so people know what town we're coming to, somewhere near them, sometime soon.
Yeah, and the place to go to check out any upcoming events is wealthbuilders.co.uk/events, and you can register tickets for those 2 events that are taking place this month. Okay, so let's look at some of the things that we were chatting to Shelley about there. And I guess the most important thing when you're creating IP is not to spend a year building it out because you think it's the best thing and everyone's going to love it. And then when it comes to launching it, it's crickets. No one actually buys. So the key is to get the proof of concept, to validate that actually what you think is right is what other people want. And Shelley talked about that. And I think she's done a good job of getting that minimum viable product out to the marketplace.
Well, I suppose it all starts one stage before that in some respects, because if you're designing a product or you're designing a course or you're designing a membership, some kind of output, got to imagine what's the problem you're solving. And in a way, when you hear what Shelley has to say, as elegantly as she says it, but as simply as she says it, we all know we need things in life. We need food, we need our health, we need money, we need all of those things. But light is such an incredibly important part of that, but we don't know what we need. We just don't have a clue. So she's got to highlight the problem, because we take light for granted in so many different ways. So I think highlighting the problem, particularly, for children, and she'll come along and talk to us about that, I'm sure soon, but also how to set your office up for best concentration, for maximization of your performance, all sorts of different things that I didn't realize because I took light for granted. And it's her unique sort of experience with that accident that caused her to really be pained by light. And now she's teaching it in so many different ways, including using natural light much more and getting out more because of the benefits of that. And she articulates the problems really, really well in the book, which of course is one of the steps, isn't it? So going as far as creating a publication, and that publication demonstrates authority, hence the word author, but also, I suppose, really focuses your expertise, who you're trying to solve the problem for, and then that builds that credibility. So when you want to, I suppose, repurpose that educational content into other things, be it courses, be it speaking engagements, be it creating a membership or a subscription or even a gateway, and we'll touch on all of those, then they stem from having that authority and that credibility that a book gives. And so much easier now to create a book than ever before, Chris, with help from AI and help from people who can keep you on track and get that done in just a few months, really.
Absolutely. And I think also one of the early steps is deciding the reason why you're doing this. Is it to generate an income stream, or is it part of your sales funnel? If you're a business, then there will be different stages where you need to move a customer through to create awareness. And Shelley is a speaker. She speaks across the world, certainly across Europe. She has got over 100,000 views on YouTube for her TEDx. So all of these are ways to capture awareness. But then, of course, the next stage is, for those that are more interested, what can they then buy? How can they engage and have a closer relationship with Shelley? And that's where the online course sits. But of course, then the next stage may be working one-to-one with Shelley, or a bigger organization employing Shelley to come in and talk to them.
Yeah, and that's down to her, isn't it, to determine how she wants to monetize that. Speaking, I can see being very positive, and the more she secures that degree of outstanding ability in a niche, the greater the fees will be. So that's not necessarily a recurring income, but it's certainly a healthy one. If you can get, I don't know, I'll make it up because we didn't talk about those sort of fees, but if you can get £4,000 or £5,000 or dollars to speak for an hour or 2 hours, well, compare that to £50 an hour for a job worth 100 grand. So lots of good reasons to want to do that. And I'm sure Shelley's sort of experimenting her thoughts with that. And there's no reason at all why you can't have multiple streams of both time for money income, but at a higher level, as well as creating recurring income through the repurposing through other methods.
Yeah, and that ties in with leverage. And we see overwhelm as a reason for people to not take action, regardless of what the asset is that they're focusing on. And we obviously do our best with our members to help them move beyond that inertia through the group environment, through one-to-one coaching, through conversations with ourselves. But overwhelm can definitely kick in when you're looking at creating a course, because there's so many different tools. We've talked about some of those out there. And leverage is really looking at either people or systems leverage. And I think you can bring both of those together to help you when it comes to creating a course, and certainly outsourcing some tasks that perhaps are those $10 tasks. When you understand what your IP is and what your time is worth, then you shouldn't be spending your time doing those $10 tasks. And there's hundreds of people out there on freelance sites, Upwork, Fiverr, who can do the job much better and much quicker. And that's a good use of your time leverage.
Yeah, and not just that, you have to discover them as well, because other people have discovered them before you and may have connections that you can use that are already in a community. So I think it's always valuable to have a community of people who are creating value from their IP, because then you can learn the lessons that they've learned. How did you put the book together? How did you do the illustrations, if there are any? How did you do, and how did you do, and how did you do that? And I think what's interesting for me is someone who's working with people like you are, Chris, in the wealth building scenario, is there are those people at the very beginning of the journey who don't make a start because they feel the overwhelm at the beginning, or they don't yet feel the problem that they'll need at some point to create a recurring income. Warren Buffett saying, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you work till you die. And increasingly people are working much longer. They don't see that problem. But what's a challenge for us, and always somewhat sad, is when people get over that inertia, they make the decision to do something, and then they get too many choices and too many things, and then they stop. And a confused mind always says no. A confused mind always is at rest. So part of that value then of having people around you being there is to help you overcome that, so you don't get stuck on your own, creating your own IP, your own book, your own, you've got somebody else or other people around you who can help, who've been there and done that ahead of you.
And we've done several sessions about different types of recurring income, Kevin, and perhaps you'd like to share some thoughts around that? I know you have some models which you share with our members very frequently.
Well, recurring income is a natural theme. It's the fundamental difference of a paradigm between those people who are trading time for money and those who are building recurring income. And the thing I like about the IP one is you've got multiple ways to do that. So you can create a business around your IP. You can create royalties. You heard Shelley say she had her first few pounds in royalties, and just the very sound of that is sexy, isn't it? You know, what did you do today? Well, today I earned a royalty. I mean, that just sounds great, rather than I got a paycheck today. You know, you're getting something, you've done the work once and you're going to be paid ongoing. And the more people who promote that, the more books that she'll sell. But the other thing that's really useful to think about, once you position and understand where your IP sits, is to work out, well, who needs somebody else's IP before they come to you, during their experience with you, and after you? And you can almost see what's the journey of the customer to get to where they want to get to. And then as you see that, you can see how you can partner, how you can collaborate, how you could create joint ventures, which is pillar number 7, of course. So this whole IP thing just opens up the door to so many other things that you can do to create an ongoing recurring income, including, you know, she mentioned being an Amazon affiliate. So affiliate incomes with other people is a perfectly viable way. If you create a website that connects the before, the during, and the after, and you've got the right then, by curating that content, making it easier for people to find it, to use it, to access it, it just means that if people buy that, you've got a legitimate right to have a revenue share from the people who are wanting to pay that because they want to promote their own product, and they built in a margin for that. I mean, the whole world revolves around the concept of margin. Profit is a margin. Retail and wholesale is a margin. So everything is done on some form of margin that's built in. So why not take advantage of that, however you choose to do that? And your IP is a perfect way to do that. You know, Rachel with her skills as a craft person, Shelley here very specifically around the concept of light, which has got such wonderful and universal existential applications. You know, I'm excited for where Shelley could take this, but so many others who are very tight in their niche, whether it's to do with animals, whether it's to do with farming, whether it's to do with a unique part of health, whether it's to do with utilities and the cost of that. There's so many different ways you can create affiliates, even if you're not using your own IP, you're using somebody else's, but you're promoting it in a way that can be value for everybody concerned. So the key thing, IP must deliver value. Wealth comes from value creation. And the more you can see how what you know or who you know can create value, the better it is.
Absolutely. And just a reminder again that we're offering access to the 4-part video series that I delivered for our members, which is how to validate your business idea. So if you've got an idea now and you're just really not sure what the next steps are to take, then everything we've talked about today, I've laid out in a 15-step checklist and a 4-part video series. You can go through that in your own time. It's going to help you identify the problem, identify your customer, how to actually create that, test it, and then generate your first revenue from that. So download that by heading to wealthbuilders.co.uk/IP videos.
And did I hear you say you're giving that for free?
I sure am feeling generous today, Kevin.
Must be getting near Christmas. The lights will be on soon, and those Christmas songs will be coming out. £600,000 is the number I want to share with you, sir. 600,000. You know what that is? It's a number I reel out every year.
Go on. I was going to say the electricity bill for your local Christmas lights.
600,000 per year is the attributed value that Noddy Holder receives for writing that absolutely terrible but equally fantastic Christmas song that I turn off every time I hear it. 600,000 every single year for writing that song. Little bit of IP. Wow, what a result.
Yeah, well, there's a great example there to leave us on. So hopefully we've inspired you today, and Shelley in particular has inspired you to take action upon those ideas that you have. You never know, in a few months' time, if you put that into practice, you might be following in Shelley's footsteps and generating an additional stream of recurring income from your IP. All right, Kevin, enjoyed today's episode, and we'll be back same time, same place next week.
I look forward to it. Until then, my friend, see ya.